I literally just got a message from Terrell Owens, friend of the show, about this entire Donovan McNabb situation. I guess Donovan McNabb went on to Bleacher Report Untold Stories. And during that conversation, I assume he was asked about his relationship with Terrell Owens and how it all went. Donovan McNabb said, I thought that was the major distraction for us. He's doing sit-ups, he's doing push-ups, he's playing basketball, he's ordering pizza for people out there. We're sitting at training camp like, you got to be kidding me. Dawkins comes in and was like, man, what's he doing now? I'm like, take a look. This is like days of our lives. It was unbelievable. That was what was the most frustrating for me because I knew what we could do. And if we decided to just come together, what we would be able to accomplish. All of a sudden, turmoil here and there, conversations going back and forth. And we had to answer those questions instead of focusing on what we needed to do in order to get back to where we were. The headline read, during this guy, there was more. I assume there was more in this interview. Those are a couple excerpts, quotes from the interview. Bleacher Report's Untold Stories Donovan McNabb did. The headline read basically that T.O. was the reason the entire team fell apart and that there was no success. That was kind of the headline that was being drawn from this Bleacher Report Untold Stories. I reached out to T.O. and I asked him. Actually, I reached out to Terrell Owens. I did. T.O. and Terrell Owens, Two different people. Terrell Owens actually told us that. T.O. is his character on the field. He's this person who can be everything, do everything. Terrell Owens is his person off. He said, Terrell Owens, this was like a year or two ago when we interviewed him. He said he finds that Terrell Owens has to defend T.O. on a regular basis, but they're both good people, basically, something along those lines. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, I heard Donovan McNabb said some things. Would you like to come on the show and chat about it? Just trying to do my due diligence as a sport. He said, actually, here you go. He said, people want to bring up old stuff. They want to bring my name up to make themselves relevant again. I'm a good person. I was raised right. I have no criminal records, no sexual assaults and or accusations, no DUIs, but yet the overall perception has people questioning my character. I am a strong-willed person and can handle it all just like I did when I played, but I will clap back to defend who I am and my character. People have hopped on that bandwagon that I was a bad teammate for years, but I've never heard of one player publicly come out and say that I was a bad teammate or agree with the narrative that I destroyed the locker room other than Donovan McNabb. So that's Terrell Owens' exact response to that. You can learn more on Get Your Popcorn Ready by T.O. and Hatch. That's a podcast that T.O. will be dropping soon where I assume he'll dive deeper into that. That was his initial quote to me about the whole thing. Honestly, I think I had that view that Terrell Owens was a bad guy and that he was always a distraction, all this stuff, because I think that was the narrative that was painted to us by everybody. Now, I think social media kind of has taken that out of the world that we live in. Back in the day, the only things that we heard about people were through media members that wanted to tell you things, right? You never heard about punters. You never heard from me. You never heard from kickers. The only time you heard about kickers or punters was from broadcasters that knew nothing about kicking and punting, but whatever they said about it was gospel. You never heard about stories about people doing bad things unless they wanted you to hear those stories. They would hide other stories and display other stories, and it's not lying. It's just picking and choosing a narrative that they want you to believe about a certain person. Happened to Jay Cutler a lot because he didn't have a great relationship with the media. They decided to show him at his worst moments when those moments were potentially happening to other people. They were just choosing not to show you that because they wanted the image painted in a certain way. The T.O. image that was painted for a long time was this attention-starved athlete that could never get out of his own way and was a cancer to a locker room. That is literally the narrative that was painted about him by almost everybody on television. Almost everybody. Then once I got a chance to meet him, not only in person, but on this show. And then you meet teammates of his that say, like, I love playing with T.O. He pushed me to become a better player. His work ethic was incredible. Once you start hearing these things about him come out, you go, wait a minute, I don't know what to believe. And the fact that these Donovan McNabb, Terrell Owens stories are still surfacing here in 2020 with Bleacher Report's Untold Stories, I don't like that this is happening again to Terrell Owens. I think he's been on the right path of doing things the right way. Now, granted, his choice not to go to the Hall of Fame and instead do it at his college is going to be one that many people are going to disagree with. But I think if you look what Terrell Owens has done in the last, 5-10 years, I think most of it has been very positive and something that you would want to be friends with and a part of. And when stuff like this comes out, it's always going to bring out the conversation that he was a bad dude. Well, hello there. Utilize the promo code PAYTHEBILLS and get $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. Now, back to the magic.
You're right. Outside of the Hall of Fame stuff, it feels like anytime his name is brought up, it's him defending himself on some guy who's just saying he was a terrible teammate, a cancer in the locker room. Like, he has, by and large, minded his own business and kind of just done him.
By the way, still got it. I watched him in a softball game jump over a guy and land on third base. It was unbelievable. I was like, damn, look at this guy. He still got it. Still an athlete. I think he'll always be very confident in himself, which could rub people the wrong way regardless. I think he should be in the Hall. He is in the Hall of Fame. Should have been in the Hall of Fame earlier. I think he is a great player. But after meeting his teammates that played with him and chatting with him, like, oh, what was T.O. like? And they're like, hard worker, a guy that made me want to be better and stuff like that. You never heard those stories whenever he was in the league. And I think if those stories ever got out while he was in league, this potential narrative that happens and pops up every time something negative is said about him, it literally, anytime he does anything, it just gets popped up and thrown in our face. If those stories were being told, I think it's a little bit different narrative about Terrell Owens.
Also, didn't he play in that Super Bowl with a broken leg?
Yeah, I was just about to say, dude who came back after like 12 days on a broken leg to play in the Super Bowl is a good teammate.
Now,
he was out there hurt.
Am I saying this because Terrell Owens has come on the show and, gave us a really good interview and let me ask him about everything? Possibly, but I think it's because I know a little bit more about him than most people do that speak about him. Like, I've actually met him personally. I've got a chance to talk to him. He's given great conversations to us about the things. He's talked about those things. Get your popcorn ready with T.O. and Hatch. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to hear him kind of expand on that. But that is the difference between modern day and back in the day. Back in the day, the narrative was controlled by those who were given a platform by a big network. Now with social media, you kind of cut that person out. They can still have their spin, but this person's going to clap back immediately and be like, nah. What you just said is a complete falsehood, blah, blah, blah. That didn't happen back in the day. What you were told was gospel until you were told otherwise. It was more of a ignorance is bliss type world. Now it feels like we know too much about too many things, but I think if more stories would have came out back then by the networks, if they wanted to put it out, that T.O. was a good guy, hardworking guy, helped his teammates actually instead of hurt his teammates, I think this narrative is a much different one.